Hey, welcome back to the Legacy Church podcast. We're excited for this discussion today. I've got my good friend Grayson Wade with us talking about Youth Alive and some back-to-school encouragements. We've also got our youth pastor, Chase Morris. It's going to be a great discussion, so let's jump right in. Well, welcome, guys. I'm excited to have y'all both on the podcast. I felt like we're getting the band back together for
Absolutely.
a little ways here. You know, the old Next Gen team. None of us are in our original roles that
That's true.
were at Legacy with. You've left us, you've ditched us, and that's okay.
Yeah, 5 years ago now.
We forgive you for that. You're doing the Lord's work.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
absolutely. Well, for those that don't know you, Grayson, take a second and just share a little bit about yourself and what you do. And
Yeah. My name is Grayson Wade, and I've been in Arkansas now pretty much my whole adult life. Outside of college, that was right out of college. I came here to Legacy Church and had never been to Hot Springs before and just loaded up a U-Haul trailer to the Honda Accord and showed up here and met my wife 4 days later and got married 10 months after that. So things happened quick and was here at Legacy for a couple of years and just loved it. Pastor Chase came on board, I guess about a year into me being here. Me and Chase were college roommates and then been doing Youth Alive now, which is, I will talk more about it later, but ministry to our schools. So training students on how to reach their campus for Christ. So I've been doing that about 5 years now, cover the state of Arkansas, travel all throughout.
yeah,
So, yeah.
that's good. And Chase, for those that don't know, tell a little bit about how you got involved in youth ministry, how long you've been doing that, and just a little bit about that.
Yeah, I just tell people I just started coming to youth and then I never left. I'm just still doing it this many years later. But I grew up in West Virginia, felt the call of God in my life at a youth camp when I was probably in seventh grade, maybe in between sixth and seventh grade. Eventually, it was time for me to choose what I was going to do with my life, and I followed that call, went to ministry school. I met Grayson there. He and I were roommates my first year in ministry school. And he graduated a year ahead of me, so he had been here at the church for a year and called me as I was approaching graduation time, didn't have any work lined out yet, and said that there was a position open here at the church. And I really wanted to be a youth pastor, and he was a youth pastor here at the time, but I just, could sense God was opening this door. And now it's kind of obvious to see what God had in store for him and for me, that I was here for a year as the creative director and then took the step to become the youth pastor here. So I've been at the church for a little over 6 years, and as the youth pastor a little over 5 now. So
yeah, it's cool looking back at how just God orchestrated all of that, where before the need was ever there, he had put people in place to fill those roles, and I don't think any of us would have changed any of it. I'm appreciative of that time, but your roles both serve as a complement to each other. You being at the district and Youth Alive and you being in the local church. How would you say your roles complement each other, and how do you work together in reaching the students both locally and then throughout the state?
Yeah, well, the thing that's unique about Youth Alive is we are church first. So there's a couple other organizations that do things kind of similar to us, and a lot of them are school first, or they may be over kind of a small area, maybe a county, a couple communities. I would say if I was in another organization, I would go to the school and start something, and then try to get churches involved. We're the exact opposite, that we work through churches to reach the school. So a lot of what I do, it's working with youth pastors, I say creating custom fit plans that work for their community, that work for their schools, that work for their personalities, their skill sets, those kind of things. So quite simply, without guys like Chase, I don't have a job.
Yeah.
That's kind of my whole role, is working through our local churches.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I would say Grayson's role is, he's done a lot. He even just came and spoke for us a couple weeks ago and really encouraged our students, kind of shaping their idea of what missions is and what it looks like. But for us, training students in the schools has become one of the chief things. You can do a lot in ministry. If you try to do too much, you'll do a whole lot of things mediocre. One of the things that I've really kind of planted our flag in is trying to utilize the missionaries that we have on the campus of our schools.
Yeah.
And it's thanks to people like Grayson who've really cast a vision for that. And I know all sorts of things like trainings and Engage the Campus, which is an event that they do. We're planning on sending some students to that this year, just really trying to resource our kids to say, hey, you can go into that school and preach and say whatever you want. Whereas a youth pastor, I'm not in your school every day.
Yeah.
Grayson's not in your school every day.
Right.
Your teachers are there to teach. You're there to learn, but you also have the opportunity to spread the gospel just with the life you live there and the words that you say.
Yeah. I love that. I've seen so many students just become that missionary, assume that role, that mantle on their life, and witness to people that otherwise would have never stepped foot in a church, never experienced the saving power, grace of the Lord. And so it's beautiful to see. Yeah. So now students are back in school and summer's come and gone. And so part of this podcast is just sharing some encouragement. We're into a new school year, and you both being in student ministry, share a little bit about what spiritual battles you see kids facing today, and share some encouragement, not just to the students, because we'll have students watch this, but we'll also have parents. And so maybe take a minute, not just to share the struggles that you see, but some of the, maybe to rephrase it, some of the positive.
I think everybody probably has a decent understanding of the negatives. You know, my wife's a guidance counselor. She's got like 400 7th graders that she's responsible for. And so sees everything, you know, as far as the effects of social media, phone usage, addiction. I mean, just so many things that are accessible to our students that are negative. You know, and I always try to remind people, if you would take a second and remember what it was like to be a teenager, it was never easy.
No.
There has never been a day or age that being a teenager was easy. I mean, it's been difficult forever. It's obviously, I think, a little bit more difficult now. But in some ways, I don't think what our students face is anything just extraordinarily different. That's kind of my opinion. I don't know if you would echo that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we don't have new problems. We just have magnified problems now. We don't really, kids aren't facing anything today that kids in the 1980s weren't facing. It's just now, if you got a bully, sometimes you can't get away from your bully.
That's it.
You know, that
More
can follow
accessible.
you home. Yeah. So what they're dealing with is, it's a responsibility of us as adults to help guide them through. That's why I feel like the role of a parent is so important. The role of a guidance counselor, or you know, a youth live missionary, a youth pastor is so important, because not only is it magnified, but if I went through some of the things that I've seen students go through, it would mess with me. Yeah. So the youth aged, not fully developed brain, can be super trying for them. That's not to be too discouraging about it, because we've seen a lot of great things, a lot of things to give us hope, which I'm sure we'll share here in just a moment. But that's why I think we do what we do. It's that Jesus needs to be in the schools, because it's one of the most trying times of the lives of the kids that we're facing, because just so many magnified problems.
Yeah. You know, memories pop up on your Facebook, and I'm reminded, I've got all these posts that Hannah and I, my wife, talked about, why don't we just delete some of those OG posts on social media? And I was like, you know what? As embarrassing as it is, it kind of humbles me at times to think, I need to be reminded of the struggle bus that I was on as a teenager, and remind myself, like, they're going through it at a greater level now than I was then. So what would you say to a student that maybe their faith is wavering, or they're being they are experiencing that bully at school, or they're addicted to social media, their phones? How does somebody in the culture of today, in the school system, have a faith that stands firm when everything around them is potentially shaken?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we have another Youth Alive missionary that he always uses this example, and I really believe it. They said, we've taught students in church forever how to play defense and not offense. I think so much youth ministry's been just don't do these things, hide, right? Stay strong, don't let this world corrupt you. I don't really feel like that's a good picture of faith and what that looks like for us. And so, you know, you mentioned a couple minutes ago spiritual dangers. To me, spiritual danger, because kind of side note with this, I think all of us understand middle school and high school, it's some major developmental years on who you're going to be, what you're going to do with your life, what your habits are going to be, what your personality going to be. And I think students, especially students that are actively going to church, that are a part of a youth group, if they learn how to not be outspoken about their faith, They learn how to live a life where they don't ever tell anybody about Jesus, or they don't ever share their faith. That's a pretty serious spiritual danger to me, that if they could go through 7 years of middle school and high school and truly believe it's okay to be a believer that never tells anybody about Jesus. And so I would say standing strong, I got to think that means growing in your faith. And for most people, growing in your faith means sharing your faith.
Yeah, I think we so often, we say in teenage years, you're learning everything, right? You're learning, you go from your mom packing your lunch to, hey, go choose a major or a career path and stick with that for the rest of your life, just so quick. And so it seems like everything, we're preparing kids for life. We're preparing teenagers for life. But then we kind of say, but you'll sort of learn your faith when you get a little older. So the greatest challenge to me, the greatest way that I've learned is through the challenge of just put your feet to the fire and learn something. You know what I mean? Whenever I started my job here at Legacy Church, I didn't know everything that I know now. I didn't know how to do a lot of the things that I know how to do now. Whenever anything that I can do, I didn't start out very good at it. And so to see students in a developmental point in their life say, hey, it might be a little awkward. It might be a little uncomfortable. Go ahead and get the awkward and the uncomfortable out of the way now. And just learn to share your faith. And let me tell you something. If you started when you were in middle school, by the time you graduate, you would be amazed at how articulately you can share your faith and how many people, I promise you have a middle schooler who starts at that age sharing their faith. They're going to have a list of people that have given their life to the Lord.
That's 100%.
Because of their boldness to share their faith by the time they graduate high school. And then just imagine that kid graduating, and they're not starting now learning how to share their faith. They're good at it already. They've got years of practice under their belt and can go into college. And, you know, as a youth pastor, that's one of your biggest things is, you know, a very popular time for somebody to abandon their faith is after high school and into college. Somebody who shares their faith, I'm far less worried about that person than somebody who never did.
Well, and that's, you know, I would say the thing about Youth Alive that gets me excited is that long-term thinking. That, you know, yes, it's great, the clubs, it's great students that have the stories, the night events, all those things are fantastic. But I think what's it going to look like in our state if we have students that sharing their faith second nature and they're filling our churches someday, they're board members, Sunday school teachers, worship team members. That's pretty exciting to think what that could look like 10, 20 years down the road.
Yeah, I agree. I'm thankful for the different things that were put in place when I was a student in youth ministry that I can look back on. For instance, fine arts was a big thing in my youth group. And there's traits inside of me that were not just placed there, but they were cultivated and shaped to where you almost feel like you have a jump start on other people. Not to say that they're any less qualified, but it just is that level of confidence that you were given. And I feel the same with Youth Alive. It gives kids that if they are practicing their faith, it gives them that boldness when I'm not in the safety net of youth group anymore or at the same school that I've always been at. I can continue to share.
That's right.
To your point earlier, you were talking about your colleague saying, you know, we're too defensive and we're not really on the offensive. I think we can become that way with our parenting or even in our youth groups. And I can imagine some different parents watching this or maybe ministry leaders watching this and saying, okay, I hear you. How do I, as that church leader or that parent, go on the offense for my child to help them shine at school?
Yeah. I was thinking about kind of this question, and I'm going to give a disclaimer before I share what I'm sharing. My disclaimer is that I know it's popular now. A lot more students are being homeschooled or doing Christian school and everything. I have a 7-month-old daughter. I have no idea by the time she's middle school or high school what I'll be thinking.
Right.
I believe everybody's got to hear clearly from the Lord for their own child. So those are the disclaimers. So don't take what I'm about to say wrong. Just say that. Our Youth Alive team, there's 3 of us. All 3 of us are married. So that's 3 team members, 3 spouses. All 6 of us were public school the entire way. And I'd like to think we're living for the Lord, you know, and doing ministry and involved. And my parents' philosophy, again, this was my parents, another disclaimer, not everybody, but they said, if you can't be a Christian at a public school, how are you going to be an adult that's a believer? And so that was kind of always their thing. And my testimony is really this. I think I'm sitting in this chair today because I was a part of a youth group. I really believe that, and I always share, if I had to go back and start 6th grade over again, there's nothing major that I would change. I think there's some small things that I would do, but I don't have any just huge regret that I wish I wouldn't have done. And that's because every Wednesday I was a part of a youth group where I had a youth pastor and youth leaders that loved me, that when they saw something that wasn't right, would pull me aside and have a conversation. Mm-hmm. I had friends that loved the Lord that whenever I wasn't where I needed to be would challenge me to get right. And so I think that has the potential to outweigh any of the negatives that a student would experience in a public school setting. And I use public school because that's the overwhelming majority of the students we deal with. I mean, nationwide, it's still like 90% of students go to a public school. And so I would say offensive, to some degree, it's trusting the system that's in place, making sure your students are a part of a healthy youth ministry, like here at Legacy Youth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no children, so I feel bold every time.
Thank you for the disclaimer.
Yeah, that's my disclaimer. Right. I feel bold every time I'm willing to step into the role and say, parents should or should not do this. I know every situation's different.
Yeah.
By the time we have kids and they're going to middle school and high school, I have no idea what I want to do. I went to Christian school, 1st grade through 12th grade, graduated. My graduating class had about 25 people in it. And so I saw the other side of it. And I will tell you that everything that your child, not everything, a lot of what your child grows up to be comes down to how you parent. So there's times where I want to take the weight off of parents. I can't really do that. And I'll have to sit with that myself whenever I have children. But so much of it comes down to, do you keep your kid involved in a youth group? Do you practice what you preach out in public? Do you live like that in the home? Do you guys prioritize the Bible and prayer in your home? I saw and do see still, as a youth pastor, a lot of kids who spend all their time in public school, some of the greatest kids. And we have kids from private school and Christian school that are amazing kids.
Yeah.
But we also have kids, have seen kids in private school and Christian school that are terrible. And I went to school with some of those kids who are terrible. And so I think it comes down to a lot of times what you live at home. I saw those friends and you could look at, I know for me, I didn't grow up perfect, but I'd like to think I'm following the Lord. I'm in ministry now and tried my best throughout my whole life just to follow the Lord. My mom kept us in church.
Yep.
My mom kept us. It was a priority. We were going to go to church. Now, thankfully, I wanted to be there. But I think I wanted to be there because from an early age, my mom kept me there, and I had friends at church. It's sometimes a little bit more challenging if you've never, to make that shift for your kids where they feel like they don't have friends. I'll just tell you, if you're watching this and you're part of Legacy Church and your student has not come to youth, we will consider them our friend from the first time that they come there. I know that that's super important, but I just feel like it comes so much down to what you do as a parent. Now, some people take that too far to the other side. And they think, well, if I'm just a good parent and we read the Bible at home, then I don't have any need for my kid to be in youth group.
Right.
That's not the case either. In my opinion, as somebody who's not a parent, I'm going to do just about everything I can do whenever I do have kids, to say anything that I can get them involved with, anything that I can get them to do to be closer to the Lord, I want to do that.
Yeah. I can trace back some of my closest friends are from my youth group growing up that I can rely on them and call them or text them frequently, and it's like we just never missed a beat. We catch up, we're close, and it's because of those relationships that were formed. And to your point, I think it does come down to the home should be the place that my spiritual life is formed and cultivated, and the church should be the place where it's cleaned up or strengthened or reaffirmed further. And I think we've got that backwards. We rely too heavily on church leaders or organizations at the school where it's like, hey, here's my kid. Hopefully you can do something with them.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And we've negated our responsibility as parents. And so with that, just Grayson, kind of talk a little bit about Youth Alive. What is it doing? How's it making a difference? And share a little bit about it.
Well, there's a couple different things that we do. Really, we believe our schools are our most strategic mission field. It's just kind of the heart of it. So we have, depending on the school year in Arkansas, 18 to 19% of our state either works at or attends a public school.
Yeah.
So you think about that.
It's a large
It
number.
means about 1/5 of the state of Arkansas either works at or attends a public school. So we always say that's true for the state. That's true for Hot Springs. There's nowhere else as a church we can reach 1/5 of our community in one place. That's it. And so, there's a couple different things that we do in reaching the schools. We work with our churches to be able to do outreaches and events, work with our youth pastors, our leaders to be able to help them get involved, and, working through our students to train them to see their school as their mission field, call them campus missionaries. So Chase already mentioned we have Engaged the Campus in the fall. That's a 5-hour training we do. We'll do it at 5 different locations this year where we take students through. It's a pretty heavy hitting day as far as really taking students through the process, teaching them how to share their faith, how to start a club, whatever it is that God's calling them to do. And so that's kind of our bar to be a campus missionary. You got to go through our training. We had 336 this past year on 131 different campuses across the state of Arkansas. So we're pretty proud of that, that we really believe those are students that are making a difference. And so that's kind of the main thing. I hope that kind of captures, the overall picture.
Yeah. So if I'm a parent and I have a student that I'm like, man, I want them to get to that next level. How would you encourage parents to say, do this with your student, or encourage them to attend the Engage?
Yeah. So, I would say one thing culturally we've done with Youth Alive is we've tried really hard to make it where when students join it, they feel like they're joining something bigger than themselves. Thank God you're going to do something at your church, at your school, and your youth group, but we want you to show up at Engage the Campus. And we get this a lot from students that go, wow, I'm not the only one. Right. Mm-hmm. Or they're there and maybe they're kind of riding the fence. Maybe I'll do this, maybe I won't. And then they hear a story from another student and go, wow, I've got to do something. So we try to have those moments where we kind of bring them into the community of being a campus missionary. We have a retreat in January that's open only to our campus missionaries that we do, where we try to really spend a lot of time together, make it special, share stories about what God's doing. But I would say on the parent side of this, every time I'm in a church, I hear 2 things. Some variation of, I can't believe they let you in the schools. That's number 1. And number 2, what are you doing to be in the schools? And I always say both of those things are saying it's your job as the Youth Alive missionary, get on the campus, do something. And I always turn that back on people. And I say, if we really believe this is our most strategic mission field, this is all of our responsibility. Mm-hmm. Right? This is something that all of us have to own and do. And so from an adult standpoint, I really encourage people to become a prayer partner for our schools. Adopt a school. Maybe your kids go there. Maybe somebody in your family works there. Maybe you live by one, whatever it is. If you have a connection to a school, would you pray and believe that God would do something? And this is why this means so much to me. I already mentioned my wife's a guidance counselor. I've been able to see kind of the administrative side. And I think with public schools specifically, we have this whole we've got to push against the darkness, right? That the devil rules our schools. There's a lot of Christians that are superintendents, assistant superintendents, principals, vice principals. They're trying so hard not to get sued. And they still do constantly. And they're just dealing with these things all the time. And this is what I've seen. I've seen a lot of people in really high up positions whose hands are tied that are praying for churches to get involved, that are praying for students to share their faith. What would happen if we as a church partnered with those people that were teachers, administrators on the inside? They're praying and we're praying, believing God's going to do something. So that's a big part of it. But then the other thing with this, I think if you've worked with a teenager specifically, they're not always the best at follow through, right? That's kind of the challenge. I think, with Youth Alive, we always encourage students and youth pastors as well, or parents and youth pastors. If a student brings something to you and they want to try something, if they want to start a club, if they want to do a night event, try to do whatever you can to encourage them. Yeah. Right. And get behind them. Because a lot of times our students will answer that challenge. Yeah. And they'll be able to run with it a lot more than we think they would. Yeah. So true. The world's already discouraging them enough. That's right. And if we're not there to encourage them, then why on earth would we ever expect them to step up and embrace that call?
Share a little bit, both of you. I've watched you both when you were youth pastor here, you're youth pastor now. I've watched you both engage the campus in the youth pastor role. Share a little bit about what that difference makes, like when the youth pastor's active on campus, but then also share a little bit, maybe a second layer to that question. What difference do you see when students in your youth group are engaged through something like Youth Alive? And what difference do you see when they're not engaged in something like Youth Alive?
Yeah.
I would just say this is a lesson I learned over time. If there's any youth pastor listening, any person who cares about being involved in a school, getting involved in a public school is not a promotion for your ministry. Being involved in a public school is ministry.
Yeah.
I used to think you got to go to the public school to get them to youth on a Wednesday night. And the hope is I want them to be involved somewhere on a Wednesday night. But I've seen kids get saved right there in the middle of school.
Yeah.
And I've seen kids who their parents won't let them go to church, but they'll let them go to a club at school.
Yeah.
I was at a local middle school, 6th or 7th grade girl gave the lesson herself. In our area, most of the time, I don't go to schools that often to teach in clubs or anything like that anymore. Most of the time, students are doing it.
It's great.
Usually at the beginning of the year, I'll get to have some opportunities to do that as they kind of work the kids into it, you know, getting back into school, all that. Sometimes at the end of the year, but a lot of times I go just to hear. Have had our students speak in their schools, but I was there one day, wasn't any of our students doing it. I was just there trying to be a presence, trying to support, whether they go to our church or not, trying to support. And this girl, she got up there and, you know, I just told her she finished her little lesson. You know, she's in 6th or 7th grade. It's not a long, articulate sermon, but she got up there and I was like, man, she knocked it out of the park. And I told her, you did a great job. And I walked away, and one of the leaders, I think it was a teacher in the school, said, you know, she gave her life to the Lord at a local event, and her parents won't take her to church, but she comes here every week, and we got her a Bible, and she took that Bible, and she went home, and she found that verse and said she wanted, and we kind of coached her along. And so that opportunity is, I can't tell you how many times, it's always the middle school students that do this to me, because parents, a lot of people don't want to get involved in youth ministry because they think that the students think that they're too cool. And I always say it's kind of like a dip where it's like when you're dealing with like the really young ones, they think you're cool, and then they get in junior high and they don't think you're cool anymore. And then once you get to high school, they're back to being okay with you. But when I go to the middle school, man, I'll be anywhere in town and I won't recognize the student. They'll say, hey, you come to my school, right?
I love it.
Like, yeah, I do. What school do you go to? It's always the same one. It's always one of the middle schools around here. But that just proves to me, it doesn't inflate my ego. It just tells me that made a difference to that kid, I came to their school. They remember who comes and supports them in their school. And I guarantee the high school students do it, and the junior high students feel the same way. It's just they don't want to come up to you and say it. But man, we have events around here that kind of combine different clubs. You know, we have an FCA presence around here, which a lot of people have heard of. Youth Alive does something really similar. Whenever we do locally a Fields of Faith or Courts of Faith, Youth Alive also has their hands in that with FCA. Those events, man, if you go there, I just challenge anybody to go to one of those events and see if you feel like the next generation is doomed. Because that's man, that is what anybody who works in youth ministry, it sort of will get on my nerves when people act as though the next generation is doomed. We were just somewhere recently, and I think it was a study from Barna that said that Generation Z, which is this age that's kind of in like late high school now, honestly, you got Generation Alpha that's coming up now, but they're simultaneously in revival and retreat at the same time. So what you're seeing is the ones who are in retreat some places.
Yeah.
That's what's making the news, and that's what's discouraging you. But also you can see some of these kids are in revival. Like there is a wave of students coming to know Jesus, unlike I've seen. And, you know, I'm in this 5-6 years now, but also was in it myself before that. And just had never seen God moving on campuses like God is moving on some campuses right now. So getting involved in any way that you can, if it's like a big event, like a Fields of Faith, or even just seeing if you can support somehow your local church, just go and be encouraged. I guarantee you that youth pastor would be happy to have you do something. He's not going to make you stand up there and preach. If you ran a cafe or did this, even if you just came and said, hey, I want to serve in any way that I can. If you don't have a job for me, I'll be there for you. I just want to see how God is moving in these students' lives. You'll leave encouraged. You'll leave just realizing that, man, there's not all doom and gloom with kids these days and teenagers. There's a lot to be excited about. That's what keeps me going. I'm sure that's what keeps you going. It's like, dude, if it was all doom and gloom like y'all think it is, I'd have quit this job a long time ago.
Yes.
I'm not that spiritual. Sometimes it's just like, man, it is powerful to see what they're doing. It would be tough to push through if that was the reality. But the reality is we're seeing a lot of good stuff. It makes it exciting to wake up and do this every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have wow moments all the time with our campus missionaries. And like I said, me and the other two members on our team, Kaylin and Graham, all three of us were public school the whole way. And we get convicted on a regular basis of like, man, why wasn't I doing this as a 7th grader, 10th grader, whatever it is? Some students doing some really, really incredible things. And so I shared that too. You know, I tell people, I understand the narratives out there about our schools. I get it. I don't think they're all wrong either, you know, but if you would hear the stories that I heard on a weekly basis, I think you'd feel different about our students and our schools.
Absolutely. I had a football coach tell me towards the beginning of this last school year, I don't remember where it was, but there's some organization out there that their thing is finding schools that promote any Christian events and kind of going after them.
Yeah.
And this football coach, he makes a point to pray with the guys before the game. And he said, you know, I've had this organization, they've sent letters up here to the school 2 or 3 times telling us we better quit this, we better quit. He said at my last school, same thing. They tried to do the same thing. He said, I don't make these guys pray. You know, we offer prayer. I don't make them pray with me. And that's what they think. But he said, man, our superintendent said, just keep doing what you're doing, man. So that's just what you said. A lot of times people villainize these coaches and these superintendents. They're doing the best job that they can. And some of them are putting kind of their neck out on the line to continue to see, truthfully what it is religious freedom, exercise in their school. You know, they're not stifling other faith practices, but they're going out on a limb to say, we're going to let these kids pray. We're going to let them do this thing. And one thing that they'll never be able to go against is students doing it. You know, when a coach leads a prayer or whatever, but you have a high school football player say, I want to lead a prayer for this team. You'll never have anybody that can come against that. That's their place. So that's just, again, why I feel like Youth Alive and training these students and all that is why it's humbling and so incredibly necessary. I got to keep my hands. I can only do so much when I go to a school. They can do almost anything they want.
Yeah. And I have a story that I'll share that I feel like really captures kind of the heart of what you're saying in working with our students. And it was similar to kind of what you'd shared. We had a student that came to engage the campus a couple of years ago. He was in 7th grade at the time, went to a 6A school, so pretty good size. Really felt led to go home and start a club. And, you know, I've got a lot of respect for students start the club. I don't think people realize a lot of times they have to meet with their principal, which I can't imagine being 13 years old and coming in. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, it's a process to do that. And so he had this great story of he started it and brought a team together and he was doing the devotions and it was growing. I had a girl that came and got saved at his club, which again, just to emphasize again, got saved at a public middle school in the middle of the day, right? And this girl started sharing her story with him. And she said, you know, I've never been to church before. And there may be some areas in the country where that's not that shocking. I feel like in Arkansas, that's
pretty shocking.
That's a little shocking.
True.
And she said, not only that, but I had friends that invited me to church all the time and my parents would not let me go. I even had times where I would want to go to something and I had family members that would make fun of me for wanting to go to church. And I share that story to say that girl was out of the reach of that church. If that's here in Hot Springs, it doesn't matter how great Legacy Church is. It doesn't matter how great Legacy Youth is. It doesn't matter how involved you are, Pastor Chase. It doesn't matter any of those things.
Right.
That girl was out of our reach, but she was within the reach of one of our students.
Yeah.
And so parents, more than anything, I want you to realize the power, the spiritual power that your students have. Like we've kind of talked about, it's not always going to be perfect. It's probably going to be a little clumsy.
Yeah.
There's going to be stops and starts. But being able to encourage them throughout, I think you'd genuinely be shocked by what they can do.
I've seen the stories of even my own high school, and it wasn't a culture back then. It was relatively not a good culture.
Yeah.
And remembering where I was at in that. And now I see the stories of they've made changes at the higher levels of the district, and it's come down through into the schools now. And now I see the stories of FCA is baptizing this many
That's
people
awesome.
on campus, or Youth Alive is hosting this event on the school that I was at. And at times it's like, is this even the same school?
Yeah.
But it's cool to see just night and day the difference on when you have students who are engaged in their campus, the impact that they make, not just in the campus, but in their youth groups, in their homes. They truly can make an impact. Just a final thought of parents watching this. What ways can they get involved in Legacy Youth, in Youth Alive, not just in prayer, but different ways you would encourage them to get involved and stay involved in these avenues?
Yeah, well, I would say with us, with Youth Alive, we try pretty hard to keep what we're doing on social media. We got a team that does that and everything. So just like I said, I mean, you already mentioned prayer and everything, but we are a ministry. It does take funds to do that. I'm a U.S. missionary. We have Kaylin and Graham are both missionaries through our district. And so anybody that would want to be a part of our team to give to make our ministry happen, we have monthly partners that make that happen. And simply put, we cannot do what God's called us to do without people that are willing to come around us and give.
I would say for us, there's always opportunities. First of all, prayer, just like he said, and we've talked about that, but that is one of the most important things. But also, I think, man, there's opportunities to serve on Wednesday nights. That's not the fit for everybody. There's opportunities to encourage your teenager who does not want to leave the house or does not want to go to church, to encourage them to come to church. And one of the things, this sounds like a risky thing to say, but I had somebody do this for me recently, and I can't tell you how much it helped me. It was a parent who just invited, a set of parents just invited me and my wife out to dinner with them. And I thought, we've talked to them. We've never gone out to dinner with them. I didn't know what it was about. Said they just wanted to talk to us about some stuff. My mind starts racing. I'm like, oh no, is this a parent who's going to be mad at me? What did I do? And these people, they took us out to dinner. We had, the majority of the time was just pleasant conversation, getting to know them. And they expressed some things like, hey, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about that? And almost everything that they said, I was like, I didn't realize that would have helped you.
Yeah.
Thank you that is going to help you, that finally somebody voiced it to me. A lot of times I think parents have things they would like to see for their kids, and in the youth ministry, they think, oh, they probably already know that. They're just not going to do it. Somebody's probably already told them that. After that conversation I had with those parents, I was like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Like I said, not a parent, certainly not a parent of a teenager.
Right.
They helped me out a lot. That doesn't mean a guarantee if somebody tells me, hey, I'd like to see this, that means I can automatically go do it. But a lot of those things that they expressed to me, they're in the works now because they told me what would help them as a parent, and their child is more involved in youth. We see from that conversation, I've seen other parents tell me that helped me out. I'm like, thank God a parent was willing to come and just express to me, hey, this would be helpful for us. So just those areas, supporting the ministry, supporting the fact that youth ministry is doing big things, not because of me, but because the Lord has something special for these young men and women, and the devil wants to come against it. But when we all team together and we prioritize this next generation, man, I don't think that there's anything we can't do, and it changes the trajectory of everything, our nation, our world, and makes the future a whole lot brighter. I don't know what I would do if I didn't get to see how God's moving in teenagers' lives all the time. I'd be so discouraged. We just recently went on a missions trip and had a mix of youth students and adults on that trip. So many adults told me how much it blessed them to see youth students praying with people and worshiping. And I thought, man, they might not see that. They might be under they might have the wool pulled over their eyes to think that none of these kids are doing this.
Yeah.
God's doing big things in teenagers. And I'm just believing, as we're starting a new school year, man, every year that I've been here in Hot Springs, in our area specifically, God has been growing. The influences of school clubs have been growing in our schools. And I'm believing that this school year coming up is just going to continue that trend, that God's going to be saving people, and doing incredible things for people outside of the reach of a church right there in their school.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you both for taking time out to share a little bit about youth. I know for me, I'm encouraged by the stories you've shared, and I believe in the next generation, and I know that God is not waiting until they reach a certain age to use them, but he's using them right here and now. Parents, if you're listening to this, you can follow Youth Alive and Legacy Youth on all kinds of different social platforms. And thanks for joining us. Would you mind, Grayson, just pray us out?
Yeah.
And we'll be finished.
All right. God, thank you for the opportunity to be a light for you in the darkness. Lord, I just pray over every parent, every student that's listening to this right now. We believe that this is going to be a special school year. Lord, that you're going to empower us like never before, that you're going to move in our schools like never before. And I pray over our students that you just give them a boldness to share their faith, that you give them the confidence to be involved, to be united with other students that have a heart to do the same things. Lord, we pray for our teachers and administrators. We know that they're so limited in what they can say and do, but God, we just pray that they open their hearts to the churches in this town, that they just open the doors wide open. And Lord, there's more opportunities than these churches would know what to do with. God, I just pray for every parent, Lord, that you would just give them wisdom to encourage and to guide their students. And we thank you for what you're going to do this school year. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
Amen.